Democratic Senator Chris Coons from Delaware. He sits on the Senate Judiciary Committee. Senator, always good to see you. Thanks very much for being here. Of course, Republicans pressed their own to sink Democratic efforts to write into this bill that the weaponization fund cannot move forward. But we've also heard directly from North Carolina Republican Senator Thom Tillis that he wants it codified, that this anti-weaponization fund should not go forward, and he seems prepared to help spearhead a Republican effort to make sure that that's part of this bill. What is your expectation about whether that's how this is going to play out?
Kasie, I have an amendment that I expect will get a vote later today or late tonight that prevents any payouts from this weaponization fund to those who were convicted of assaulting police officers on January 6th. I would far prefer that we take up and pass Senator Cassidy's amendment that would just kill it, just shut it down altogether. But as long as President Trump keeps saying that it's a good idea and that it's not dead yet, we need to keep fighting this tooth and nail. And I'll remind you, just last week when Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche was in front of us on the Appropriations Committee, he wouldn't make a commitment to me that there would be no payouts for the January 6th rioters who were convicted of assaulting police. He wouldn't commit there would be no payouts to major Trump donors or the Trump family or to Trump friends. And I'll remind you, Acting Attorney General, soon to be nominated for Attorney General Todd Blanche, is responsible for this settlement, this weaponization fund, and another one that would shield President Trump and all of his family members from any future tax audits.
Sir, what is your understanding of why Todd Blanche has not wanted to put his repeated on-camera assurances to members of Congress that this fund was dead? He won't put it in writing. Why do you think that is?
Right. Because the president doesn't agree and doesn't support it. So I think Todd Blanche has a long history of acting as the president's personal attorney and as Attorney General. One of the most disqualifying features of his career so far at the Department of Justice is that he is focused on helping carry out a campaign of political revenge and being intensely loyal to the president. His public comments make it clear President Trump doesn't want this fund to go away. So we may be here very late tonight and into tomorrow as we work to try and make sure this fund is dead. But Kasie, thanks for also making clear in your opening comments what is the larger goal here? Republicans are trying to jam through $72 billion more for ICE and Border Patrol. They've already given them tens of billions of dollars in last year's reconciliation, instead of negotiating with us some common sense reforms to hold them accountable to the same standards of policing that every state, county, and city department follows in America. You know, wear a badge, wear a body camera, wear a regular uniform, get a judicial warrant if you're going to kick down someone's door. That's in the Constitution, in the Fourth Amendment. There's some pretty simple modifications that we would have agreed to, and instead they're just jamming this money through so that they're going to have an enormous set of resources for mass deportation.
You earlier in your comments mentioned that Todd Blanche is going to be tapped formally to be confirmed as Attorney General, now currently, of course, in an acting capacity. We learned earlier this hour when the House Oversight Committee released a transcript of their interview with the former Attorney General Pam Bondi. She says that Todd Blanche is the one who oversaw the release of the Epstein files inside the Justice Department. Do you think that that is a black mark on his potential confirmation?
Absolutely, Kasie. I mean, look, President Trump ran on lowering your costs, making America healthy again, no new stupid foreign wars, and releasing the Epstein files. He's failed on all of those. And Todd Blanche played a central role in dragging their feet and redacting anything of relevance or value that might have revealed President Trump's actual role with his close friend, Mr. Epstein. So I do think that that is something that is a reasonable basis for grave concern about whether he is an appropriate person to serve as our next Attorney General.
Sir, big picture, the president's approval rating is obviously very low. The Republican opposition we're seeing to this weaponization fund on the Hill helps underscore the political peril that he's in. There are increasingly conversations that Democrats could potentially win back the Senate. But the road to that runs straight through the state of Maine. And Graham Plattner, the nominee there, has been on Capitol Hill talking to Democrats after some damaging revelations over the weekend. How high is the level of concern that there could be more that will come out about his record that could make it all but impossible for Democrats to win there? Or should I also say that would make him not tenable as your Democratic Senate nominee?
Well, Kasie, I'll say that the road back to the majority also runs through states like Iowa and Mississippi, Alaska, Georgia, Michigan, Minnesota. There's lots of important Senate races on the map this year. I did not meet with Graham Plattner, with Mr. Plattner, when he was here this week. And I frankly haven't read the article that apparently just came out this afternoon. My staff just told me about. But I think it's important that anyone who is a candidate to serve in the Senate or who serves in the Senate be held accountable for their conduct. Ken Paxton is the Republican nominee, for example, in Texas. Just ask his wife or the fellow Texas Republican legislators who impeached him. His ethical standards, his moral conduct is also going to be an issue of great concern in the race in Texas. So I think it's important that we ensure that folks who serve in the Senate follow a high standard. I also think it's pretty rich for this to be something I'm asked about now every half an hour when we have a president who cheated on his first wife for the second, on his second wife for his third, and paid off Stormy Daniels to conceal it from the American people. There's a whole lot of bad conduct. I don't condone any of it, and I think it's important that folks who serve in the Senate, where I serve, follow a reasonably high moral standard.
Yeah, we just do want to note you're referring to a report in the New York Times. That report itself says that they've not independently corroborated some details that are in this Times story. The Times spoke to a number of women about relationships that they had with Graham Plattner. Now, we here at CNN are working on verifying these claims and reporting this out, which is why I mention all of that. But Senator, your point taken. Do you have other, the new reporting about some of the things in his personal life, there also was a tattoo of a Nazi symbol that he acknowledged online he knew was a Nazi symbol back in 2019. Took him years to remove it. Do you have any concerns about that? And what does this say broadly about just the coarsening of our politics?
Look, the fact that we have a president who was convicted of sexual assault in a civil trial was found responsible for sexual assault, and that we've got folks who have served in Congress who've committed a variety of infractions of both law and common decency speaks to the coarsening of our politics and our culture. I agree with you. And, frankly, Mr. Plattner is a four-tour combat veteran and someone whose conduct as he came home from war, many have questioned. I don't know him and don't know him at all well, but I'm going to give him a measure of grace and wait until I get a chance to hear more about the details of all these different allegations. In my view, the folks who we have here in the Senate and who we might have here in the Senate, we should hold a high standards.
All right, Senator Chris Coons, always a pleasure to have you, sir. Thanks very much for the conversation.
Thank you, Kasie.
Talk to you soon. All right, ahead here.